Bases dropped on another round of Soccer's Morning Show. Soccer Down Here. It's Thursday Thoughts. John here, Jarrett there. And there's plenty of stuff to talk about. We've got previewing of the weekend, and so I guess after our opening kickoff, then we'll get into that. So when it comes to Morning Sean, yes, and we do have Spurs to talk about, where Spurs have responded to the ban of Paratici. Yes, Coco, it is opening day for those of you who celebrate. And, the Braves have the new uniform, or at least for the city games. The only thing that I don't like is the. Yes, happy opening day to all who celebrate. I love the old school throwback, the tossed back to the mid 1970s. But the that's the only problem I have with it. So you got that. What
do you have against articles?
In general, I don't like articles. I mean, I like to slur my sentences together and not have articles in my sentence structure. Morning, Alex. Hope you are well. But yeah, that literally is the only beef I have with the new. When is it going to be used, Jarrett? That Braves uniform.
I know they released a schedule. I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
But it's like special occasions, and
it's special occasions.
When the network sits there and calls for cityscapes, city. It's time for your city salute for your uniforms, and that's when you wear them. And so that's where you end up with that. But I think they're the cherry blossom one that Washington came out with last year, I thought was fantastic. But, so I love the throwback for Atlanta and what they've done with 75. So happy opening day for those who celebrate. Congratulations, you've made it to yet another opening day. Okay, Saturday home games, Alex thinks. So, I mean, that's, that's perfectly cool with the throwback to the 75s. So that's, that's perfectly fine. I personally, I'm more of a, minor league guy. And waiting to see how my Angels screw things up for yet another season in the American League West. So that's, yes, morning, Tom. So literally that's how I operate. It's like, I know we're not going to make the playoffs with two of the best players on this or any other planet. And that's how I'm celebrating my opening day, by cursing the ground that I walk on.
Also shout out to the Angels owner who is not letting the Angels radio broadcast team will be calling games remote, because I believe he mentioned that it did not justify the cost to send his radio broadcast team on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Literally every other team disagrees with him, but also he could not be asked to actually sell the team to someone who gives a damn.
Yes, so Artie Moreno's just going to kind of hang on to it. No, Ricky.
Artie Moreno can kick rocks.
Yes. No, Ricky, I did not refer to the Angels as a minor league team. I'm more of a minor league guy. But no, I know that my team is not going to make the playoffs, even in the new format. And yes, Coco, I'm exactly going to do this. I'm absolutely going to sit here and say, take the Almada, enjoy him while you got him, applying it to Shohei Ohtani for this year. Because then Shohei Ohtani is going to absolutely get a bid from the Yankees or somebody for $11 billion, and he's going to walk. I mean, as he should. I wouldn't want to put up with that ish. I mean, legitimately, I am of the mindset where, look, get something for him while you can instead of letting him walk on a free. Sound familiar with this show? Sign him up. Protect it, get rid of him so you have assets. I guarantee you, if the Angels are smart, beat 2, 3, 4. You trade him at the trade deadline, get a crap load of assets, and try to figure out how to mess that up. I don't think that's going to happen. They're going to say, oh, yeah, we'll re-sign him as a free agent in the offseason. Yes. So there you go. I'm just, Nope. I'm going to enjoy it. Yes, I'm going to take the Thiago Almada riff and enjoy it as much as I can, because we won't make the playoffs with him. We ain't making the playoffs without him. So what changes? Just enjoying a true talent. So yeah, we're talking Atlanta United. What else is on your mind as we get ready for Red Bulls? As folks are driven crazy by Red Bull's philosophy, and so we got that to talk about. What's on your mind where Atlanta United's concerned? I know that Tom has already got some stuff here in the Twitch pitch timeline, and no injuries. Absolutely, there's that. So we'll talk MLS. 10 o'clock. It'll be really interesting. We have two of the guys from the USL Show that are here. Kaylor Hodges from the Hammer Down podcast. And you might know John Morrissey from USL Tactics. And he's a part of the USL Show. And what I'm going to spring on them this morning is that for the last Thursday of every month, I want them to come on at 10 o'clock so they can talk about what's happened in the league for the month that was, and we can have that discussion. So 10 o'clock, Kaylor Hodges, John Morrissey from the USL Show are going to come on. We're going to talk USL Championship for a half hour. There's news. Christine Sinclair did an interview with Julie Foudy on Julie Foudy's podcast over at the Four Letter. And she had some words, laughter permitted, where they talked about what's going on with the Canadian women's national team. There's appearances by former Canadian national team, Canada soccer reps. They're going to be on Parliament Hill today. So Christine Sinclair caught up with Julie Foudy on laughter permitted. And we have some of that to talk about as well. We've got the Spurs update with Paratici. We got plenty of other stuff. But first, as if venting about my California Angels wasn't enough, it's time for the opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And here is your QR code for those of you watching on Twitch. And once again, go to Kickoff Coffee and use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off of your purchase, and they in turn take 10% reinvested into the youth game at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Don't know if you saw this story out of Jacksonville, Florida. And when Bart comes on, we have these discussions. We have these discussions about officials and, how they're, maybe getting $50 a game, doing their job, enjoying what they do. But, it's stuff like what I'm going to talk about is stuff that has them not want to do it anymore. And I don't know if you guys saw this story out of Jacksonville, but a Jacksonville Sheriff's Office sergeant was arrested for, and I didn't know that, Jarrett, this was an actual charge, battery on a sports official. I didn't know that was an actual charge, but apparently in the state of Florida it is. After he allegedly hit a ref during a children's soccer game. Back on Saturday, a sergeant for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office walks onto the field during a fight between kids from different teams, refs blowing their whistles to break up the fight. The sergeant walks up and allegedly hits one of them. Refs blowing whistles, and the spokesperson said refs blowing whistles as we probably hear them do during football games and anything when those kinds of things break out. For some reason, he struck that official. Disappointing. The sergeant was at the game in plainclothes in a non-official capacity. He was arrested. And so Jacksonville Sheriff's Office had a press conference about it. According to the arrest report with JSO, they responded to a local park in reference to a battery. Upon arrival, an officer made contact with the victim, a referee, who said that during the game, a fight broke out between several players, led to several parents coming onto the field. Victim stated he began to intensely blow his whistle in an attempt to gain control of the situation. The victim advised the suspect, told him to stop. When he did not, the suspect then engaged with him. Due to the victim actively participating as a sports official in an athletic contest at the time of the battery, the police report indicates this is an enhancement from a misdemeanor to a third-degree felony in the state of Florida. And the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office spokesperson says if one of our employees violates a criminal statute, agency fully investigates the violation, that allegation. And JSO is going to open an administrative review. Case is being investigated by the Integrity Unit and the Special Investigations Unit. The individual who is charged has been a sergeant for almost 3 years and has been with the Sheriff's Office for 15. So now we got folks taking swings at officials on the field,
I
And
mean, I vividly remember as a kid, there was like a news story where like a parent, like even if like Little League Baseball, like the parent went over to a coach's house and like pulled a gun on him like one night because his kid didn't get to play as much as he wanted
yeah.
to. Like, man, like parents are dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Parents are dumb and problematic and really annoying and embarrassing. Like not just as parents, but as human beings sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be that don't be the don't like okay, it's the same thing with Twitter. The rule of Twitter is that every day there is a main character, and your goal in life should to avoid being that main character.
Absolutely true.
Never become the main character.
No, never become the main character on Twitter. That's always
These people consistently become the main character.
yeah. And you know, it's bad enough. Yes, absolutely, Ricky. Those who are supposed to uphold the law should face the strongest consequences. And this is the next step in that process. And you know, when you're in a situation like this, you know, there's a skeptical part of me, you know, and we always know that I am a bit of a skeptical. That you wonder if this particular individual, whom I did not name on purpose, is going to get said book thrown at him, or is it, you know, going to be, yeah, just don't do it again? I want to know how serious the investigation is going to be by the time it's over. That's the largest question. And you know, if you wear a badge as a part of your job, I think that there is a standard that is there. You know, you're supposed to be someone who upholds the law, and then all of a sudden you want to take the law into your own hands. And I'm not going to this is not the people's court. You know, don't take the law into your own hands, take them to court. This might end up being another after effect of that. After all of this is done, you might have a civil case after this is done if the verdict goes one way or another. And it's ridiculous that you see things like this where someone, regardless of what their job is, in this case we are talking though about a sergeant in a sheriff's office, but what compels an adult to want to wander onto any field and sit there and take a swing at a ref? Why? You know, what compels you? What set of anger do you have to get to where you want to sit there and wander onto a field of play where you're not participating? You're supposed to be just watching. And you wander onto a field and you want to take a swing at somebody. That's the biggest part of this for me. Michael Valverde's in this morning. How do parents get their whole identities and egos wrapped into their children? Well, I mean,
Living vicariously is one way. It's not the
yes,
only way. You get a lot of parents who live vicariously through their kids and their kids' activities and their kids' successes and failures, and it can get really toxic and really destructive emotionally and physically.
Because of the lack of success perceived internally by the adult, or you know, wanting to follow in my footsteps. I want them to do the same things I did. I don't want them to make the same mistakes I did. I think that this, you know, particular child of mine is going to be a massive success, and so therefore I want them to follow. I want them to do as I say, not as I do, and I'm going to be with them every step of the way, kind of a thing. You're living. The adult is trying to either change course from what they were doing at that same age, or they're trying to have that individual follow through if there was a certain level of success. You know, just literally, as you said, living vicariously, either in a positive or a negative. A lot of times it has to do with, negatives from the adult. The adult didn't make it to a certain level that they thought that they might have made in their lifetime. And then you end up with, you know, an adult sitting there saying, you know, be this, do this, and I'll invest in you, and we'll do all this kind of things, and it goes too far. And you know, that's how you end up with parents getting those identities and egos wrapped up into their kids, because they themselves, factual or perceived, may not have had the success that they thought that they were either entitled to or worked toward. And now you've got round two, and you can sit there and you see this promise through the prism of a parent, and there you go, and Michael is back in. He says, and they think this is somehow helping their children. Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. A la the Reynas. They think that it's helping their kid because, they're rolling over every single aspect of their lives. And like I said, I don't know the context of the relationship of the sheriff's officer and the field of play. Morning, Abby. But, you have an incident, you have an instance that turns into an incident. So, look, as a rule, as Jared says, don't be the lead story on Twitter. Do not be that lead story where someone is shooting video of you in a grainy, zaprudery kind of manner, and it posts on Twitter and Instagram of you taking a swing at somebody when you shouldn't be in a position of authority and being an adult. Don't be that individual. But we've had that in Jacksonville, Florida. So we'll keep an eye on that with a couple of different levels that are attached to that. I wanted to, because Friday is Friday and it flies by. Literally, that show flies absolutely by. We come on at 9:05, and at 9:30, we get our friends from Beyond Goals. It should be slated to be Greg Garza this week. And no, actually, it's Michael Parkhurst this week because we had to adjust it for Greg last week. So it should be Michael Parkhurst, 9:30. Weekend whip around, patent pending, trademark coming, probably, hopefully, sooner rather than later, maybe. At 10 o'clock, we go through everything in Major League Soccer. So we don't have the time to, do a deep dive into the weekend per se from any perspective. But what I wanted to do this morning, obviously, is get everybody's thoughts on Atlanta and Red Bulls coming up this weekend. And so, Jarrett, I will start with you. I know that, we'll have updates this morning about players coming back and who's healthy and who's not. And we know that Miles didn't have to do any post-game sprinting or anything like that. It looks like he came through his match unscathed after being a healthy scratch first and foremost. When it comes to when it comes to Red Bulls, as Abby says, can we just whip their asses? I hate New York Red Bulls. When it comes to the possibility of that occurring, Jared, when it comes to this matchup, what's running through your mind right now?
Yeah, how much can everybody give you? I believe, based on Instagram, Giacomakis is back in Atlanta after his stint with Greece.
Yes.
Looks like everybody came through everything pretty well. We'll see what the injury reports say tomorrow.
Yep.
Again, MLS teams are only basically ordered to give so much information, so they will not give you more than they have to.
No.
How much can everybody give you? Because based on what you've seen so far, Daddy, that this team is capable of absolutely, obliterating you. Can they put it together against a team that's not going to let them play?
No.
Because we know at this point, Red Bulls doesn't really believe in letting you play.
No.
They want to take all the ability to play out of it, for lack of a better term.
I want to take the air out of the ball.
Yeah, man. Like, I want to see how it goes for it. I want to see how Atlanta deals with it. Because Red Bulls, they're not going to give them the freedom to do much. So what can you do with the opportunities you get? That's like 90% of my questions.
Yeah.
With this, like, you're going to get pressed. You struggled with it last week, and it's not the same kind of press. Not all presses are created the same.
Yes.
I want to see how they deal with it.
Yeah.
Rich, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Rich wants to know what we're yelling about. We're yelling about Red Bulls. So
yelling about this is Atlanta. Atlanta yells about Red Bull. Remember, Atlanta's only beaten Red Bulls once. It just happened to be in literally the biggest matchup between the teams in their histories. Like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's been a lifetime of, like, near misses and pain for Atlanta fans. Like, it's either been heartbreaking losses, like last year, where you played your ass off for 80 minutes?
Yep.
Took a lead late, and you felt like, oh, hell yeah, we have got something to work with here. And then you didn't.
Yep.
So I think that's where it's at, is you're trying to figure out, where, at what point can you break through in a regular season game and get something other than disappointment in your life?
Yes.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't have answers, man.
No, Rich is proposing then just going ahead and fighting back.
Oh, Abby, I'm miserable right now. Like, I am absolutely wrecked right now. So.
Yes, if Jarrett could hang upside down and perhaps drain his sinuses, he would absolutely do that. The thing about fighting back, Rich, and dragging the game into the mud and being Red Bulls versus Red Bulls, that's not who you are. That's not who Atlanta United is. I'm sure that if you wanted to play that way, like Tata did in that one playoff match, you could, but that's not who you are. It's not really your DNA, and you're kind of going against type if you do something like that.
Yeah, they're going to stick to what they do, and they're going to stick to playing through it, because the idea of, if you can play through it and you play through it successfully, then what you're dealing with then is opportunities. The problem is that traditionally you've been able to play through Red Bulls, but when you do it, like, you've had moments where you've played through them, and this is the thing that will eternally piss me off about the national conversation about playing Red Bulls, because you've played through them before, but when you try and play through them, they're going to foul the ever-loving hell out of you. They're going to break up that play when you break through the pressure. So I know it's a stylistic thing, but it's this conversation we have nationally about, like, well, Atlanta failed to do their job. I'm like, no, Atlanta tried to do their job, and Red Bulls just did their job back to them. Don't put all of the onus on teams like an Atlanta or like an LAFC or like a Sporting Kansas City. Don't put all of the onus on them to do all of the work, just because Red Bulls is set up not to do. They're set up to press and go. Don't put all the, well, somebody's got to do the job, it should be someone else. Like, no, man, like, don't put all of the onus on the team that actually wants to have the ball, because it's tough, man.
We got folks who are chiming in about Red Bulls. Coco, last time we fought Red Bulls was Lawrence versus Tito, and Tito was never the same.
Yeah. Tito is just now, by the way, getting back to being the same.
Yeah.
And how many? That because like Tito. Well, I'm saying that because, like, in the last, like, to start this season at Libertad, like, to start I think this is the Clausura for them. I forget how their schedule is built. He's actually had a really good start to the season, or start to this leg of the season, this half of the season for them. Because aside from that, it's been very. He's struggled with health a lot. So, like, I'm happy to die on this hill, and we can discuss it however long we want. You can talk to me about, numbers he's put up in the last, like, calendar year. And yeah, when he's been on the field, he's been good, but he can't stay on the field. Now he's able to start staying on the field. You're starting to see more productivity out of him. But dude, he, like, the second half of the calendar year for 2022, I think he missed like 17 games.
Yeah.
It's hard to sit there and watch for Libertad. That is the most expensive signing they had. When he signed, that was the most expensive signing they had made. It's tough to watch your most expensive signing sit on the bench and be hurt and not be able to go.
Yep. And the biggest question that we have from folks in the timeline, obviously, is what the lineup's going to look like. Gutman week to week, and probably the easy solution is dropping Caleb Wiley back to left back. And so then you're trying to figure out what your back line's going to be like. Does Miles Stark give you 45? Do you bring Miles in to close the door? Do you not have Miles? Miles in the building and burned positing a backline of Lennon, Cobb, Purata, and Wiley is not super press resistant. Neither is Ibarra and Sosa ahead of them. He doesn't have much hope for the weekend in terms of.
Well, I don't think you're playing Ibarra and Sosa together again. Like, I think that's a one or the other kind of thing. And frankly, like, I don't know which one you go with, because I think, like we talked about it and everybody's talked about it. I know. Sosa looked like a guy who didn't play a lot, because he wasn't able to early in the season. But I mean, do you let him go here, and do you let him try to be the guy who can play, deep line, or do you go with Ibarra, who's been? Look, I don't really care what your narrative you want to push on it, or if you want to blame him, which apparently we've got some folks in the national media do. Franco Ibarra has been one of the better, one of probably a top 3, number 6 in this league early in the season.
What is it? Number 2 in the league in tackles.
Yeah, he's right behind Aiden Morris, who he played against last weekend. Who Columbus? Aiden Morris should be going somewhere in the foreseeable future. He's too good, man. Mm-hmm. But I want to see, like, do you go with Ibarra because that's what's been working? Do you go with someone else? I don't know. I am interested to find out. Do you go Ronald Hernandez on that back line and ask him to play
on the
left back and have Wiley sitting higher up the field? Do you go with someone other than Juanjo Purata, especially after the week he had last week, where he was less than perfect with his trying to skip lines with his passing, and that's a recipe for real disappointment against a Red Bulls team. Like, how do you mix this up?
That's that's the big question here. Man in the middle came out yesterday in the assignments. It's Alex Chilowitz. Here's your crew, by the way. Alex Chilowitz is the man in the middle. Your ARs, Nick Uranga and Johnny Facchini. Your fourth is Fotis Bazakis. And I would just go ahead and warn Fotis Bazakis right now that he's going to get an earful from both sides. And your VAR is Daniel Radford. Your assistant VAR is Kevin Locke. Numbers so far for Alex Chilowitz: 4 matches, 80 fouls awarded. So that puts him, top 10. I mean, if you got, let's see, Uncle, Zapala, Rivas, Penso, Guido Gonzalez Jr., Elfath, De Oliveira. So it puts Chilowitz 8th in fouls awarded as a man in the middle so far this year. Only 6 yellows, though. 80 fouls awarded, so he's averaging 20 fouls called a match, only averaging a yellow and a half per match, and he has awarded 1 red in the 4 matches that he has officiated this year. So doesn't give you a whole lot of yellows. His yellows per match is toward the bottom. I mean, it might be the bottom for someone who has been a man in the middle. 2.67 from Tucson, 2.5 from Philip Dujic. Yeah, Chilowitz is, and 2.25 by Alan Chapman. Alex Chilowitz has the lowest ratio of yellow cards per match through the first 4 match weeks this year. So there's that. So when you're leaning into what we're talking about, Jarrett, with Red Bulls, it looks like the way that Chilowitz calls a match going in leans toward Red Bull's style of play and then being successful. But at the same time, it gives somebody like a Franco Ibarra, who's got some sandpaper in him, the chance to go in and challenge and do those same kinds of things. But not a whole lot of yellows issued by Alex Chilowitz, even though he doesn't whistle a whole lot of fouls, lets the game go in front of him, doesn't give a whole lot of yellows. So it will be interesting how this lays out with looking at his current form.
I mean, this is the same. But okay, we have this same conversation every time these two teams play about how it's going to be officiated, because you can sit there and point to me about, you can sit there and point at the idea of like, well, so and so, they give or don't give a bunch of fouls, okay, but when you're Red Bulls, what you're playing for is that one time that they don't give the foul.
Yep.
That's what you're looking for, because that's what's going to lead to the huge opportunity if you are Red Bulls. Cards are going to be an interesting part of it, because we've seen like frustration in the past where like you'll see like Atlanta, you'll get out fouled where it's like, something like 10-2, but Atlanta's sitting there with a yellow card because they had to commit one that's in transition or something other. And, you'll have, a foul disparity, but the card disparity might go in the other direction.
Yeah.
So how does it get managed? Because if Red Bulls come out early and, you start trying to break their lines and they start fouling you, but they spread their fouls around.
Yes, absolutely.
But here's the thing about that crap. Like, and this is a thing about persistent infringement that I feel like and I would love to pick Bart's brain about this, because I feel like it's something that officials don't consider a lot, at least the ones we see in MLS. They don't consider a lot. They just seem to consider like, well, that person's committed a bunch of fouls in short order. That's persistent infringement. Nah, man, if they're spreading their fouls around, but they're fouling Thiago Almada, or in the past, if they're fouling Ezequiel Barco into oblivion, but it's like 5 different people spreading those fouls around, dude, that's still persistent infringement. It's strategic fouling.
Mm-hmm.
If your benchmark for that is, well, all they really did was, it was different people, so it's not persistent, then you're not doing your damn job, man.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it with Philly. We've seen it with Red Bull.
I mean, we can have the conversation about it, but we had the conversation, we've had the conversation since Jesus wore sandals. I mean, we can have it again, whatever y'all want to do, I guess. I don't care.
But that is the thing. And I think that it's incumbent upon Pro to sit there and monitor and understand where a game is going, instead of just implementing a card in a situation, understanding that persistent infringement takes many forms. It's not just one dude fouling over and over and over. It's one dude being fouled over and over and over. And that is, while it sounds different, it's really not. And I think what you have is you have center refs more often than not doing the former and not implementing the latter, if that makes any sense. Where they're doing, it's like one dude over and over again, not multiple dudes fouling one guy over and over again. And I think that's lost on officials sometimes in the implementation of persistent infringement. They're looking at the outbound and not the inbound, if that makes any sense. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's fine, man. I mean, but like I said, like, we can have the same conversation we've had, every pregame for God knows how long with these two teams play, or when Atlanta plays a team like Philly. You can have a conversation as much as you want. Like, it doesn't change the fact that that's kind of one of the things you're going to be looking for. Also, how effective is New York going to be when they get those opportunities? Because we can get mad about it all we want. Like, because it's different. And people are all, as Yul Brynner said in Cool Runnings, noted international philosopher Yul Brynner.
Yes.
People are always afraid of what's different.
Mm-hmm. That is true. And if you haven't figured out how to...
they are so damn good.
Yeah.
At when they get those opportunities to go forward and turn you over, they are so damn lethal at it.
Yeah. And that's their shtick. And so I would say, I want to know who's back. I want to know, obviously, like I said, we'll know more after training today. But how many minutes are the returnees going to get? With Caleb probably dropping to left back, and you're looking at something along the lines of Caleb, Purata, Miles or Cobb, and Brooks, then what are you looking at there? Then what's your midfield like? Where is Mateus Osechu when it comes to his recovery? Is Thiago back? How many minutes can he give you? Obviously, if he's in and he's good, if your physios sit there and look at the numbers and look at his wear and tear, then Thiago's going to start. Then what does that do with the rest of the midfield? Santi Sosa, I know a lot of folks have been talking about Santi in the timeline. Santi looked like he had not played in a while.
Yeah, but I get that. But guess what game you can't afford to have that in?
Yes.
This one.
Yes, this one.
Like, yeah, Santi's been good, man.
Mm-hmm.
Santi's been good traditionally. Santi also has looked like he's been rusty because he probably is.
Yeah.
And he wasn't good last time out.
Same with Tyler.
Now, if you want Tyler Wolf was even worse than that. If you want to put him out there because of his skill set, cool. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
But understand that, hey, he has not been about it early on in these games, and that's okay. He might need to get it turned on.
Right.
And that's okay. It's okay that he needs to be. Just know that you might be playing with fire a bit because you could sit there and say, well, that's the guy we need. I agree. You would love to have him be that guy right now. But if you have concerns about him being 100%, this is a hell of a game for him to not be 100% because as we saw last year, you can lose these games against a team like Red Bulls in a matter of minutes.
Mm-hmm. You can.
Less than 10 minutes, you got Caleb Wiley with look, it's the kind of penalty that a young player commits because they're young. And then you get God, who was it? Well, Alex John gets just hanging on to the ball for God knows what reason. To this day, I don't know why Alex John was just kind of hanging on to the ball, doing nothing with it. You get situations like that will burn you, and you don't need somebody doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the whole setup is going to look like this week because it could go in a lot of different directions, honestly.
Yeah, and like I said, obviously we'll know a lot more after practice today and then the availability report. And this is the other thing. I'm digging the availability reports.
The Friday ones?
Yeah, the Friday one.
Oh, okay.
I'm digging that but at the same time, I know that, you're going to sit there. Just the fact that it's going out as an actual document. I know that it's, you're going to be like the Stanley Cup playoffs and sit there and go upper body injury, probable, fine. But at least the idea that you're announcing what's going on. I like the Friday announcements, kind of like what we're seeing in the National Football League. I like those kinds of things. Ricky is suggesting that Ronald Hernandez start on the left, if at all possible, leave Caleb at the wing. But remember, you can have a left back like what we've seen from Andrew Gutman, have those underlapping runs and work his way inside that left channel. So, I mean, if Derek Etienne Jr. is good to start on the left-hand side at your left wing, you can still have – I mean, think about what we had last season with Gutman at striker center back, where you'd have, Gutman and Wiley on the left. Wiley would be on the left wing, and then you would have Gutman with the underlapping run coming into the inside, working the inside channel. So you could just as easily have, say, a Derek Etienne Jr. on your left as your left wing, and Caleb doing those same kinds of things that we've seen with Andrew Gutman, working as left back, working his way inside, doing those those inside runs that we saw with Andrew Gutman and what we continue to see with Andrew Gutman. But obviously, he's whatchamacallit. He's a week to week, aren't we all? Kaylor Hodges dropping in this morning before his appearance in 15 minutes. Availability reports will continue to become a thing as sports gambling becomes legalized. It's the exact reason the NFL is so well reported with their injuries. And, not wrong. And so, and to your point, Ricky, I know that the less disruption you have with your starting 11, the better. Getting it as close to full song as possible. Like I said, I don't know where we are with other things. Burned. If I'm Gonzalo Pineda, I have Brad Gazan punted at John Tolkien 25 times this game. My money's on Luis Araujo beating Tolkien for a couple of goals, just like Tito obliterated Connor Lade. Tolkien is overrated.
Man, national media is going to come after Burn for that. I'm not kidding. The national MLS media damn near worship the ground that John Tolkien walks on.
Yeah, I feel like we should have some kind of spiritual music.
What was his name? What was that? Sam Vines, who was at Colorado.
Yes.
John Tolkien has replaced Sam Vines in their heart and soul and mind.
Mm-hmm. So Bernd, what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this stat because since I come on at halftime, I'm going to keep an eye on this matchup. Now that you have put this on the floor, I'm going to keep an eye on this matchup. If Brad Gazan or Tolkien versus Aruju, that's what I'm going to be looking at. Kefsey apparently has been looking at FIFA ratings, and apparently all the Red Bull kids' FIFA ratings are all inflated. I guess not just John Tolkien, but a lot of folks have their FIFA ratings over all inflated. It's this is something of a level so far unforeseen, where one style of play where you take the air out of the ball and play like the ball has cooties inflates your FIFA rating. Maybe that's something we all should learn for those of us that play FIFA. I don't play FIFA, but as a golden rule, perhaps, maybe play FIFA with Red Bull's kids and see if that helps you at least get through tough matches with at least 1 point. By the way, if you haven't done it, public service announcement, join the Fantasy League. Join the Fantasy League if you haven't done it. Chris Ashley beat me last week in the OG promotion relegation league. But join the Fantasy League. And how do you do that? You go to the Jason Wright Agency Facebook page, Jason Wright with a W, AGEN agency, Jason Wright with a W, AGEN on Twitter. Join the Fantasy League if you haven't done so. Join. Have fun. Beat me and Jason on a weekly basis in the head-to-head. And it's great. Let me see how many folks have joined the Fantasy League so far. So MLSsoccer.com, and we click in the fantasy section, and it asks you to make sure that you are who you are for that double notification, the double verification kind of thing. So fantasy, I've already built my squad. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I love how it doesn't recognize who you are after you haven't logged in like a day and a half, as paranoid as I am about my lineup. All right, so league. We got 55 folks in the open league. I want more. We need more folks in the Fantasy League. So sign up for the Fantasy League. Jason Wright with a W Agency on Facebook. Jason Wright with a WAGEN on Twitter. Patrick N. Smith 82 gives us all of the helpful hints when it comes to who to pick and who not to pick. I would recommend not picking somebody from Austin because they have a bye. And so, if you pick somebody with a bye, that's kind of bad. So don't do that. So that means that I've got to eliminate Driussi and I've got to eliminate Brad Stuver from my roster and figure out what's going on. So it might be some St. Louis in there. Might be some there might be some Lewin, and there might be some Strauss as a part of it. I might be maxing.
Take St. Louis because apparently they've I don't know, man. They've bewitched everybody to just start playing the balls right to their damn strike. No, not even Red Bull reasons. They have bewitched everyone into playing the ball right to their damn strikers. It's the weirdest thing. I have never in my life seen this outside of like a damn U8 game. Absolutely. That a team is consistently getting teams just making these hilarious look, we see Red Bulls, we see Philly play these pressing styles.
Mm-hmm.
The goal that they get last week was so hilariously incompetent, I did not know where to begin in discussing it.
Absolutely.
They have taken whatever damn devil magic the St. Louis Cardinals rocked for so many years, and they have filtered it in to soccer. I don't know what else. I don't know how else to explain it. I don't know.
No, I don't either. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to figure out what I can do financially and figure out, at the moment, if Thiago Almada is a part of the roster, and then trying to fill out what I can do with my roster to date and see what I can come up with. But yeah, I'm hurting in the Fantasy League. Yeah, I think Tolkien did get a cap recently, wasn't it, for like the January camp?
Yes,
Where with the substitute teacher with Anthony Hudson.
Yeah, like I said, you had a bunch of people on the national side, like just falling over themselves about him too, man. Like it's just what happens. It is what it is.
It's just burned with he says John Tolkien outplayed Bello pretty badly once, but that's why I would pin him back and put him up against a better dribbler like Arujo. He's not quick, and I think Luis will destroy him.
Also playing up, like, man, look, God bless George Bello for what his potential was, but right now George Bello needs to be somewhere else and somewhere playing.
Yes,
because right now it ain't it.
No,
and
that is true.
Like outplaying George Bello at this point right now is more disappointing than it is anything else about what George Bello has struggled with for the last year plus.
Mm-hmm. And that's you've got to stare at that first and foremost and go, dude, you need the playing time, and it's going to be really difficult for you because I know that there was some looks in the championship, and those did not come to fruition, though.
I mean, why wouldn't there be? If for no other reason, like I figure if you think George Bello is talented enough to be that guy, then at this point, his value should have collapsed. So, yeah, if you really like him, it shouldn't be hard to say, hey, we should go get him.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was Birmingham City that might have been interested in him.
Yeah, if you like him, go get him, man.
Yeah, because you probably could get him right now, and it would be at a decent rate. And if you're looking to make sure that you can grab someone, then you can grab someone at that point. Quick note: the owner of the Sacramento Republic looks like he's going to be buying Huddersfield, so we'll keep an eye on that. Abby, and I didn't get the chance to talk to you about this, Jared, yesterday when Bart came in for his normal Wednesday visit. Julie Ertz returning to the.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, Julie Ertz returning to the women's national team.
Good for her. I mean, I want to see how much she factors in.
Yes. And that's the she apparently has been playing. She's been playing, and so she might be getting into shape. But I mean, Vlatko has said that he would rather have someone who's at 80 or 90% of who they are, who has a history, rather than 100% of someone who hasn't been tested. But no, if you could bring back the teal headband to help you out at the back at the age of 31, and that's going to be in a couple of weeks.
Wait, she's only 31?
She will be, yeah. She'll be 31, I think, in the middle of April, like 2 weeks, like 2.5 or 3 weeks.
That sounds very incorrect. I don't doubt you. It just sounds incorrect.
Well, it's because she's been around for so while.
That's what I mean.
I know.
How is Julie Ertz only 31? What the hell?
I know. And that's the fun part in all of this.
She's not even 31. She'll be 31 next week.
Uh-huh.
She's 30.
Yeah. Well, we're making sure that we can make sure that no, we're not old. We're seasoned, experienced. How about that? We are experienced. When do you turn into a pumpkin?
I mean, whenever, soonish, but
okay.
With the intention of coming back to discuss USL Sicko materials whenever I can.
Yeah, it's like coming up in short order. It's going to be
because we
Hodges and John Morrissey.
Yes, because no. I want to again, just because your local twos affiliate doesn't play in USL doesn't mean you shouldn't be watching the league. It's damn hilarious.
Yeah,
it is absolutely wild at times what happens in USL, man. It's still worth keeping up with.
Absolutely, and with MLS Next Pro, the interesting element in that. Kaylor, it's a dumb league.
I love it so much.
Well, and
especially like Kaylor, like losing his mind with Birmingham games. I enjoy it.
Yes,
mostly because Birmingham last year was such a weird ride.
Yeah.
Where it was like, they're going to be fine. They are not going to be fine. Just kidding. No, we were wrong. They are.
They're going to be, well, and the fact that we're going to have host-on-host crime in the segment because Morrissey has ties to the Tampa Bay organization, and Kaylor is in Birmingham. And guess who play each other this week? Birmingham and Tampa Bay.
Yeah. This is fine.
Yes.
This will all be fine.
Yep. Sharif on St. Louis. It seems St. Louis has had a combination of being blessed with a good start, some luck, some return on hunger for making a name-upon debut, and a bit of an eye for taking advantage of opportunities that present themselves. Like most, wouldn't have expected them to do as well as they have, but no, I did not anticipate Flight 500. Did not want at all. And wish them luck. No, wish them luck. Well, except for when they're against a certain team. LOL. They don't play that certain team this year.
No, they don't, because MLS's schedule was designed by people who don't want happiness.
No, and there's no trip to Austin too.
Yeah, we're still waiting on that one.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to go to the Austin game last year because I was doing a Georgia Storm game that night.
That is true.
And I was sitting there talking with Stephen Bivens about it. Like, we were sitting there talking about why Atlanta's getting waxed because Stephen still had done some training with John Gallagher in the past. Like, man, John's doing well. I'm like, yeah, he is. I looked at the score like 3. I think I'm like, oh, he's doing really well. Good for you.
Yes. Oyich. But no, it'll be fun. And let's see. Rich with but I still think Sharif, that when they go through the order for the second time, I think, and also the summer with the style of play, that's when I think that St. Louis comes back to the rest of us. But I think
they'll have those lulls like any Red Bulls the style team does, where like they'll get like a stretch of games. Rich knows this as a Philly fan. You get those stretch of games where it just looks like everyone's dead tired. And you're like, how the hell what's wrong with you guys? It'll be like 3 or 4 games like that. Then they'll get a little bit of a break, get some wind back in their sails. They'll feel good about themselves again, and they'll just go on a stretch where you're like, oh, that team's unbeatable. This is fine. St. Louis just kind of hit that coming out the gates, man.
Yeah.
Of course, if you want to get into the USL side of things, and this would be a question for the USL guys in just a minute, I think it was Phoenix last year that was passing it like 50% on the season.
Oh, God.
At one point, like, I think it was Phoenix. Like, at one point was just like, hey, what if passing just was a thing we didn't do?
Yes.
Like hilariously bad. Like, they were just like, hey, we're going to pump it down the field. We're going to see what happens. I think they were passing at like 50-something%. It was amazing. It was what you would expect in an orange ball snow game in the middle of a blizzard, but they were doing it in Phoenix.
Yes. So the irony that's attached to orange ball. Maybe you should just have an orange ball in heat. In heat games as well.
Yeah, Phoenix was a wild ride last year. Yes, every time I put them on, I'm like, what am I watching?
Yes. So and the fun thing is that this year with MLS Next Pro, there's actually, you mentioned scheduling, with Red Bulls coming to town on Saturday.
Sorry, Birmingham. They start slow, end horribly, and everything in the middle will be the best team in USL.
Oh yeah.
Hey, look, to the day I die, my favorite player in that league will be Enzo Fernandez. So any team he's on, I'm going to be watching closely because the man's going to cut a promo at least 8 times per game.
Mm-hmm. No, Enzo Martinez is completely and totally out to lunch. And
Enzo Martinez has chosen violence on a daily basis, and
he absolutely has. He absolutely has. So no, it will be interesting when we get to talk to. You see, and this is the fun part: is it with, like I said, with Morrissey, who's got ties to Tampa Bay, and Kaylor, who's got ties to Birmingham. The week that will be when we talk to them about it at the end of the segment. Let's see, and so Rich picked the Miami FC to follow. Fun watching them play in front of 30 fans in.
With their terrifying Galazzo mascot. Rich, if you haven't seen the mascot, please go look up Galazzo.
Yes.
I'm begging you.
And
this is a personal favor to me.
Yes, by all indications, AA is the enforcer, is still the enforcer in Birmingham, Anderson Asayadu.
And like we talked about this with Kaylor after the game when Atlanta played Birmingham last year. Like, it felt to me like when they played the first few times after he went to Birmingham, that he had a chip on his shoulder the size of a small island nation.
Or a large island.
And it seems like he might still have that chip. I don't know. But it seems like he's really kind of settled it down, or at least been able to control it, because, like, I don't know, man, like, last few times I saw him, like, that raw emotion still exists, but it wasn't as insane as I remembered it seeing. And yeah, man, like, the potential of, like, Anderson Asiedu completely controlling that emotion is absolutely terrifying. Because if he's just gonna, like, not be bothered, if he's just gonna be himself and be semi-crazy, but able to control that emotion, I'm very interested in what that looks like.
Yeah. So we'll bring in Morrissey, and I feel like I should play like some 80s alt music when we bring Morrissey in. Trying to come up with the proper tune and not violate any kind of ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC licensing issue. I know we're waiting for Kaylor, and this is kind of a handoff. So, John, first off, welcome to SDH on the live side. Welcome to the madness, sir.
Yeah, really excited to be here. Thank you guys for having us on to talk some USL.
All right, and so now Kaylor, Kaylor's had his cup of coffee, so here's Kaylor. Kaylor's ready to go. So, Jarrett, I will give you the first question since you're leaving and then coming back, I guess. So. Stay as long as you want to stay, and then
we're just gonna see how long we can make this last. We're just gonna see how many chainsaws we can juggle at once.
It's a fatal 4-way.
Until I lose a finger, that's kind of what we're doing here. Okay, first of all, please explain to those who are uninitiated the concept of Birmingham as we start bad, we end bad, but everything in the middle is going to be the most beautiful thing you might have ever seen.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much Birmingham. Every single year they look awful. Their offense doesn't click. They refuse to score goals. And then roughly around June, when it's 100 degrees outside, they decide this is a wonderful time to score goals now. We want to press because we live to have a heat stroke. And then roughly around September, where it starts to cool off, they're like, it's no longer hot. We could care less. We're going to back our way into the playoffs. And the fans are left confused because for a while we were the best team in the USL. And then in the season, we're just perfectly meh. It's incredible. For 5 straight years, this is how it's been. And you know what? At least it's expected.
Well, so then, John, what's it like for you to sit there and be a part of this chaos? Because for those that don't know, I'm going to go ahead and say, obviously, at the USL Show, at Kaylor Hodges, and at USL Tactics are must follows when it keeps everybody needs to keep their eye on stuff. But what John does, and John is probably the personification of half-past crazy, so I guess he is the personification of the USL Championship. He will break things down tactically and show you why things work the way that they do. How many hours a week, John, do you break film down to sit there and post clips on the Bird app? How much homework are you doing here?
I mean, pretty much every Saturday is a complete wash in terms of trying to get as much done live as I can, and then visiting things throughout the week. I shudder to think about how little sleep I get to get it all done.
That's the fun part of this. Jarrett, go for it.
Yeah, and because I have to thank you for the USL, because I think it was last year, the tactics page, I think you put it on like a Google Doc.
Yeah.
And because I kept that bookmarked when we were doing Tues games all the time, just to get an idea of, between doing this show, between doing like lower division soccer, between covering high school and a normal job and raising a child, I was running out of time to keep up with everything. So, I mean, it for those of y'all who haven't found it before, you can go check it out. I think it's on Twitter is where I found it. But if you want like a really good view of the entirety of USL, like, and tactics change, like philosophies might change over time. Guys move in, guys move out. But I do have to thank you for that, what you put together last year, because it was a great introduction to some of the teams that we don't see a lot. Like we were used to in Atlanta, seeing Birmingham, seeing Tampa, seeing Loudoun United, seeing Memphis that. But getting that from like the West Coast teams or the occasional visit from Tulsa, which was always just an acid trip of a game, I can't thank you enough for that, because it was, I'm sure you worked an insane amount on it, but it was awesome to be able to absorb it all.
Yeah, I mean, just giving that 1,000-foot view of what every team is loosely going to be looking like, I think it's something that I find to be important. I think we do a good job of it week in and week out at the USL show, just trying to give a voice to teams that you wouldn't otherwise know about. So,
all right, so let's get into this season. And Kaylor, let me start with you. And obviously, since I'm going to ask you the question first, John gets longer to prepare his answer. As we've hit the first month of the season, first 4 match days or so, biggest surprise and biggest disappointment, regardless of conference?
The biggest surprise could also be your biggest disappointment, and that is, I think it's Abby, I think, and Chad kind of mentioned the Rowdies themselves. The Rowdies, on paper, have this is before injuries and stuff like that happen, but if you just look at the roster and you just look at names on paper, which you can't always do, they have potential to be the best team in USL history. I fully believe that, but they have started off with 2 points out of 3 matches, and it's looked bad at times. And, just some things that happen around the USL aren't, it's after being around it for a while, you are no longer shocked by some of the things that happen. I think if you're new to the league, the Memphis situation may seem like a shocker, but being around for a while, it's just kind of Memphis and the USL doing USL things. I think if you're looking for another shocker, I'm surprised. I am incredibly shocked at how quickly this Charleston team has come together. They are mostly a team built by kind of backups, and Ben Pierman is arguably the best coach in the USL, but I didn't even think that he could put together a band of misfits this quickly, and putting it together around some of the most exciting youth prospects around. It's incredible how fast it's been put together.
Okay, so follow-up question. What is going on? Obviously, Memphis right now, Kaylor, bottom of the table, of their first 2, giving up a lot of goals, have no offense. We know that Philip Goodrum is not happy about his place, but Philip, I think, needs to talk to his agent perhaps, or not sign contracts. For those that don't know, background on what's going on with Memphis 901 right now.
So for people who don't know the rest of the 901 situation, so Ben Pierman left, who is arguably, again, the best coach in the USL. He left Memphis to go to Charleston for what many consider to be a quote-unquote lateral move.
Yeah.
But, from behind-scenes conversations, that entire relationship between Memphis and Pierman was so shattered that it could never be reconciled. And whether it's for his own wallet or whether it's because he wanted more money to sign players, that's, you have to talk to them yourselves. But so they bring in Stephen Glass, who obviously Atlanta United 2 fans know really well, but Aberdeen fans know him as very different. And he has seemed to bring his Aberdeen self over to Memphis. The back line is injured beyond repair until Buckmaster or Lesson Paul gets back, and they're playing strikers at right back or at left back. It's awful, and it's kind of just culminated into Goodrum saying on TV that he is devastated to be back in Memphis, and after not being allowed to leave. And their new goalkeeper that they brought in, whose name is escaping me to say.
Phil Hamid.
Yeah, thank you. It gets released that he is allowed to leave for free to any MLS or European club that he wants, and they don't have to pay a fee, even though Goodrum was not allowed to leave because the fee wasn't high enough. So it's just a lot of backroom chaos happening in Memphis that has led from a team finishing in second and being a shock of the league last year to looking like they could be wooden spoon winners.
Jared Smith for John Morrissey.
Yeah, because this is, and I think John had mentioned it last week, that you're waiting. If you're Memphis, you're just put put Reese Buckmaster in a hyperbaric chamber or something. Just get him back on the field. Do what you can to piece this back together because I am a Scottish League sicko. I watch a lot of Scotland. It's not healthy. I don't recommend it. I've done this for years, so I had plenty of experience with what Stephen Glass was doing at Aberdeen. And I was interested to see how it would transfer over because so many of those teams in Scotland like to sit back and counter or just straight up bunker, and it's like Livingston era terror ball. Like we're like that halfway line might as well be a river. But the best games he had at Aberdeen were playing against Celtic and Rangers, teams that came out and wanted to play on the front foot, and they were able to possess the ball and then counter press Celtic and Rangers into really good games, but really struggled with teams that wanted to sit back. And I'm interested to see, and I'm interested to see how it develops for them playing in USL this year, as he is, to y'all's point. Like, it sounds like it's trying to just piece things together and just try to limp this thing across the line so you can build it back up.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the problem with Glass, who I think he led Aberdeen to their worst finish in more than a decade, he just hasn't looked like he's really had a tactical identity in his years in the USL. Part of that being Atlanta United 2 was such a development job for him where, yes, he was trying to instill some of the principles that you would want for the senior side, but a lot of it was almost babysitting. He hasn't. Well, Memphis, when they had Pierman, were so defined by a very possession-based system. They counter-pressed you hard. They played short from the back. And he sort of abandoned that and got rid of that beautiful play over the winter break, despite the fact that Memphis kept about 9/10 of their core together. I don't want to lambast the guy after 2 games. We've talked about Buckmaster and Paul and the fact that they started the year with a goalie with 2 professional appearances to his name. But I'm just worried about underlying system. He's not doing what Pierman did to make this team so good.
Well, then let me posit this, John, to the discussion. Traditionally, when you and Kaylor look at teams in USL Championship, how long do you give a new coach before you sit there and go, okay, this is who they are with, injuries and tactics and adjustments and things like that, before you're satisfied with who a coach is with their identity with a club? Is it the quarter pole? Is it halfway through a season? When it comes to looking at teams that are in this new boat, Memphis 901 with Stephen Glass and a new head coach, how long traditionally do you, in situations like this with a new head coach, even with all the personnel that's there, how long do you sit there and analyze things before you come up with any kind of a final judgment as to, okay, this is who they are?
Yeah, with someone like a Glass, where I've been able to look back at the video and the data for what he did with Atlanta, I have a little bit of an opinion of him coming in. I think you can make that determination a little bit quicker, and especially given how much continuity there is with this Memphis team. This team came out, finished 3rd place in the conference last year. They should be good, and they should look at least competent even with the injuries so far. So it's a red flag immediately, but I think I still give him a third of the year, let's say, to really get in the mix a little bit. If you think about, say, Blair Gavin in Tulsa, who hasn't had a head coaching job before, he also has a completely overhauled roster. I'm going to be a little bit more forgiving. I'm probably going to give him 3/4 of the year before I really start to form an opinion on whether he's the guy or not. I do think that it's interesting. USL Championship teams are pretty remiss to get rid of coaches within the season and really within a year or two. So there's a safety net built in for these guys. But I do think you're right in that you have to give them some time to let things stew a bit.
Kaylor, who else is giving you early red flags?
From teams that we expected to not be as good, I think everything's kind of status quo, but it's something that we kind of stumbled into just briefly on the show, USL show we did on Tuesday.
Excellent.
And it's
nicely.
Yeah, good. Throw it in there. San Antonio, despite some injuries, are not looking great. They are according to our good friend Ryan Allen, according to ELO, they were the greatest team ever in USL championship history, according to math. And I'm not going to argue with math. I'm an idiot. So, like, they're a really good team that brought back essentially everyone. And they are really, really looking not good. They're bringing in guys on 25-day contracts because they're just trying to get enough of a roster because of injuries. The way that they're playing still looks like San Antonio. It still looks like it, but it's just not playing right. And you can say, well, once injuries get back and they do what they do, they'll be fine. But if you look at, Jordan Farr, who is quickly becoming league MVP, and if he even keeps on anywhere close to the trajectory he's on, probably going to win it. If you're relying on your goalkeeper to play out of his mind for the entire 34-game season, it's going to be a long season. It's hard for me to see them sustain it.
Jarrett, go for it.
It's literally what Charlotte was doing for part of the year last year in MLS with Christian Kaylor. We're just going to have Christian Kaylor play above his head for 2/3 of the year and just see what happens. I guess to shift gears into like a happier tone. Also, John, I don't know if you just saw this. This is totally unrelated. Rush Probst has a job again in Pell City.
Yeah, I saw your tweet from Ben Thomas. Well, the thing is, it's like he had the job as associate head coach at Coosa Christian, which was about a half hour from his house, and now he's got the gig at Pell City.
Sure, why not?
So sorry,
it's never going away.
High school football down here. All right, go for it.
I guess to elaborate on big positive surprises. You talked about Charleston because it felt like last year felt like Charleston was your get right game. That was your we need to play Savannah State because we're willing to pay $70,000 for a win and we need a 70-point win. Hell, man, the twos teams are getting up against Charleston and like taking scalps off them. What is it about? And I know you talked about with Pierman about the possession style, about his possession, about his ability to counter press. After what happened last year with just a really sloppy press that they had, how is it that he was able to change it so quickly there?
I think part of the deal was he was precise in the players that he chose to add, the players that he wanted to really build this team around, despite the fact that they were something of a garbage fire for a lot of last year. The Battery had a couple of pieces that were really good. I mean, Augustin Williams made the all-league team at striker. They had some good players in the midfield, particularly Fidel Barajas, who's an up-and-coming Mexican youth international. And, I mean, he's starting games at 16 years old and looking like an all-leaguer already.
He's a stud.
Yeah, he's an absolute stud. But I think I would point to specifically the fullback spots really as the example here, where Pierman made it a priority to get Declan Wynn from Detroit, who led all fullbacks in assists last season in the USL. And then he brought over Derek Dodson, who's a converted forward, but he did that in Memphis and brought him with. Both of them are obviously great attackers. They know how to overlap. They know how to get involved, but they're very engaged in the press. They'll sit at the halfway line, choose their spots when to close on opponents. This Charleston team is so good at limiting chances on the counterattack, keeping the ball out of those dangerous areas. Of all teams that have played more than a single game, they've got the best expected goal margin of anybody. They're just playing really good soccer at both ends. And, I mean, it's another feather in the cap of Pierman and the argument that he's probably the best coach in the USL right now.
Yeah.
All right, so it's at Kaylor Hodges, at USL Tactics, and as we know, 80s alt Morrissey hanging out with us, and Kaylor Hodges at the USL Show, hanging out with us here for another 10 minutes here on SDH on a Thursday. Guys, for the record, I don't know if I've told you this, but you're stuck with us. I'm going to propose that for the last Thursday of every month during the USL season that you guys drop by and we do this as a once-a-month free-for-all. You're stuck with us.
Yeah, sure. I got no life. I have no life, sure.
All right,
you too, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so when it comes to Kaylor, let me ask you this. I know that a lot of folks here in Atlanta with their time with Atlanta United 2 and USL Championship are gravitated toward Birmingham and other and teams like that are close by. Give me a team, either Eastern or Western Conference, or you can give me one of each, that even though it might not be biggest surprise, biggest disappointment, who is a team worth watching just because of the chaos factor so far this season, or someone that you're anticipating is going to be incredibly chaotic for the casual person to drop in and watch?
Oh man. If you're just looking for chaos and it's always going to just fall into chaos, anytime that Rio Grande Valley plays at home, just bet on that. Edinburgh is the biggest pitch in the world. It is just miles and miles of grass. Every team looks like they're down a man. And RGV, I think every single year since joining the league has led the league in cards. They love to rack up yellow and reds. It's just what they do, and they force teams to join along because they're so angry. They're a team that just is the definition of chaos for me. I want to out of the East, it all seems pretty standard.
Yeah.
And John may completely disagree with me, but this is something that we always kind of say on the show, is that the West is a simulation. It doesn't exist. And so if you're looking for just pure chaos, it always seems to come out of the West. Your El Pasos, your Las Vegases, your, San Diego Loyal always seem to be up for at least a couple of just pure chaos games where you're just scratching your head and wondering what's going on. Honestly, tune into pretty much any Western Conference game and you're just going to just be thoroughly entertained and really confused the entire time.
Exactly. One of the comments in the Twitch pitch, John, they want to know how Jackson Conway, how do you think Jackson Conway will do with Phoenix Rising now that Atlanta United has loaned him out to Rising this year? How do you think Jackson's going to do?
I'm very high on Conway's game. I know he had interest from a couple of playoff teams midway through last year, but they couldn't quite pull it off with Atlanta. So now, loan it with option to buy to Phoenix. Rising went into the season with just one striker on the roster, so he is going to get plenty of time to play. Obviously, Atlanta fans would know he's a good finisher, good head on his shoulders in terms of movement. They're going to be playing a very up and down, high tempo style. He's going to be expected to do a lot in terms of that hold up play, getting into the good positions on the end of those counterattacks. I think the sky is the limit for him there, honestly. He's going to be given ample chances. And just based on what I've seen with Atlanta United too, he can more than do it at this level.
Jarrett, go for it. What's on your mind?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go, was asking about Conway and asking about what he's done.
I've stolen your question.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
As far as like those teams, some of these teams that we saw take the league and really kind of take it by the collar last year, it was a team like Detroit that came out and really hit the ground running. What's kind of your expectation for teams in a year two? Once you get over that initial, hey, they've shocked the league a bit. They didn't necessarily win a title in year one, but they came out, they took a couple scouts, they had a good time. Like, once you kind of settled into year two with these teams as they try and build identities, what's your expectation for these teams? Like for a team like Detroit, for example, who now they kind of know how it's all going to work, and their teams are kind of be ready for them.
It's an interesting study in contrast. Sorry to cut you off there, Kaylor. Between, the two expansion teams last year with Detroit and Monterey Bay. Monterey Bay gave more than a dozen 2-year extensions across their roster. They kept everybody. They really only made one addition to the starting lineup, and that was Alex Dixon, who's a perennial 15-goal scorer from Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So they were really leaning into the continuity, thinking we had the right structure. We just needed that one forward to really cap it off. Whereas Detroit lost arguably 3 of their 4 or 5 best players when you think about Declan Wynn, who we talked about earlier, Antoine Hopino leaving. And the players they brought in to replace those guys were fringe USL players, guys from Nisa that they were familiar with from those days. Detroit's looked not miserable out of the gates, but certainly really lacking that offensive punch. They benefit from the fact that they're very much a defense first team that doesn't need to score goals in buckets, and Trevor James is as active as any manager in terms of those mid-game changes to really go and grab a match by the scruff of its neck. So Detroit almost felt like they didn't really invest to keep up in year two, in my estimation, whereas you saw the continuity argument for Monterrey, who's sitting in fourth in the West right now, probably paying off in a better way.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to pretty much spot on what I was going to say there. I mean, with Detroit is that if you look at their roster, look at who they brought in, look at the potential of who they brought in, including some signings that have happened in the last day or two, I think they have largely stayed the same from where they were last year. And that got them into the playoffs. And it very well could get them in the playoffs this year. But I think we have also seen that pretty much every other team in the East take a step forward. And, you know, when you stay the same while everybody else is coming up, you end up going down just by the virtue of how that all works, right? So, but when you look at the West, this is a Monterey Bay team that I really believe in. I have been probably way too high on them. But when you look at Guido, if you look at Alex Dixon, those are certified guys who will score. And not to mention, they have probably the best center back pairing in the USL. When you have a good forward attack, when you have a solid defense in the back, that's usually a good recipe. And that's something that Detroit City kind of lost, was a certified, you know, goal scoring threat. They have guys like Ben Morris, who spent a lot of time in England, could be a guy for them, but we haven't seen him do it yet. And it's not fair because he's been injured, ACLs and all that kind of stuff. So the potential is there, but for every, and I've said this before, for every 10 guys that you bring in from outside the USL and you bring outside that sphere, for every 10 guys that you bring in, usually only 1 to 2 work out. And so you're just left with 8 punts that just did nothing. And you can't rely on your team to be built off of punts.
All right. So, Kaylor, let me ask you the last question so John can cut the promo. Rich Ransom, who is our resident Philadelphia Union fan, and make sure that everyone else who is a fan of another team in the Eastern Conference knows that he's a Philadelphia Union fan, wants to know about expansion and what the latest is with expansion coming into, and we'll take it as deep as you guys know when it comes to Championship, League One, and League Two. What's the latest on expansion and adding teams to any of the USL umbrella?
Okay, so Rhode Island is coming in next year, which if you've been around the game for a while and you know of kind of older, I guess, New England Revolution and recent Legion assistant coach, Conno Smith is going to be their first ever head coach. And I don't even know where you found that, to be honest.
I know that their store is open and they can't keep the stuff in. Michael Parkhurst joins us every other Friday beyond mentoring, and as a part of the ownership group, Cap was like, "Yep, store is open," and you literally they cannot keep things in the store when it comes to Rhode Island FC.
I promise you cannot find an obscure team or dead logo that no longer exists that John does not have an item from.
That's fair.
Or that he has sent me, because I have hanging in my closet still a New Orleans Riverboat Gamblers shirt, and I am begging them to bring the old logo back.
Well, and Jarrett, to your point, this is the most recent purchase that has been brought in. Almirante Brown, baby.
It looks like an AHA music video.
It is fantastic.
Yeah.
Almirante Brown from our friends at Classic Football Shirts, one of the great generals in Argentine naval history. Almirante Brown.
That. What was the Nashville one, John? Was it the Nashville Diamond?
Yes.
And it was basically like an early 90s caricature drawing of a guy standing with a top hat and cowboy boots standing on a football. It was absolutely
love it.
Yes. I need all this back.
Yes,
I'm begging New Orleans' team to be the Riverboat Gamblers. Bring back that logo. I'm begging you.
Yep. One year at Hale Stadium in 1982. for the Nashville Diamonds, and they finished 7th in the ASL. They did not make the playoffs, and there you go. So sorry, continue.
So Conno Smith is going to be their first ever GM and head coach, joining Parkhurst and that group. If you look into League One, is where you're going to be seeing the most growth. They're looking at bringing back Wilmington, which is just making League One just the Southeast. And the League One is also, there's been a lot of rumors of Northwest Arkansas. That has been a heavy push, just trying to get a little bit more. West Santa Barbara is going to be coming in with League One. There's other, like Portland, I think, is being pushed. Not Portland, Oregon, but the other one. They are being rumored and whatnot. League Two and W League is where I see the most interesting growth, because there's a lot of teams that are fleeting and trying to get away from UPSL and NPSL as fast as they can, and they're all joining the USL umbrella. We've talked to a lot of ownership groups, a lot of coaches and GMs from League Two and W League, and they just talk about how much of an improvement the USL system is over NPSL and UPSL. So I think you're going to be seeing a lot of those NPSL legend teams, a lot of those, Real Central Jersey. That's another team that Ira really wants to get League One in there. He is heavily pushing for that in W League and Super League. Jacksonville is coming into the league as well, New Orleans. But League Two is going to be the biggest hotbed, I think, because there's going to be a lot of those teams that you're used to seeing in the UPSLs and NPSLs that are going to be heading for the big umbrella that is the USL.
And I know that we are in added time, and I'm holding up the banner without any minutes because I don't know how much more time. But John, you're doing something really interesting. You are on your blog site, and you can promote that too. You're doing what must-watch games there are, and you alerted Duke Keith on the Bird app that his game was the one to watch, and Duke was like, ah. So, what's the game to watch? Is it Birmingham and Tampa? Is that the one that you guys are promoting this week because of Birmingham and Tampa? or where can folks check out your perusals of games of the week? And obviously, we'll promote the USL show after that. But where can they look at your analysis on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I mean, just follow at USL Tactics. I tweet everything I do way too often. Writing at Backheeled, if you're familiar with that, Joe Lowry spearheading the effort there, covering all things NWSL, MLS, etc. I'll throw a quick shout to Kaylor with the hammering down stuff for Birmingham Legion fans.
Yeah.
And really, if you care about the USL and your team is playing against Birmingham or is going to be playing against Birmingham, he's bringing in spectacular guests every single week. So that's must-listen stuff. And then together, hey, the USL show. Every Tuesday, we're live in your podcast feed. We've got the Kit Season show, which is fun this time of year to talk about the uniforms that everyone's debuting. And we'll have some interesting, fun announcements, partnerships to get out there in the next couple weeks. So be on the lookout for that.
All right. So, gentlemen, it's great to have you on for your premiere performance here on SDH on the last Thursday of the month, all the way through USL season. I'm calling it right now. You are hereby requested to return in the 10 o'clock hour, the USL show. You guys can fight amongst yourselves as to who you want to have as a part of the fatal four-way or the battle royal or whatever you guys want to do. Kaylor, it's great to see you, my friend. John, it's fantastic to see you guys as well. And thanks for letting us know about what's going on in USL Championship. And Birmingham v. Tampa. That one's going to be fun. And also pay attention to what's going on with Duke Keith and our friends out in El Paso. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We'll catch up with you in a month's time, the last Thursday of next month, to find out what's going on in the USL Championship.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So, Kaylor and John. See, that's what happens.
Not John, the other John.
No. Morrissey. Swadehead. To answer your question, Coco, it's another couple of years down the line. They're looking, I think they were looking at 24. Yeah, it was just starting to be 24, but now we'll keep an eye on what's going on there. The biggest issue in New Orleans is the stadium and trying to figure out where to play.
When that got announced, the first thing I did is I got into a conversation with Mike Conti about figuring that out from his time down there, trying to figure out what stadium would be right.
Yeah, and is it Tulane? Is it the old Zephyr's place? That's what they're staring at right now. So 24 was the early return. Do we go any later than that? That's the big question when it comes to New Orleans. And now that our guests have gone, we actually can do this. Our friend Cesar Luis Merlo, Tata Martino will not be the coach.
He didn't want that stress in his life.
Boca Juniors, quoting Cesar Luis Merlo. Despite the fact that the first talks had been considered very positive by both the parties and the DT, they wanted to, due to a family decision, Tata declined the offer. So that is where we are with Tata Martino. So Boca.
Okay, go ahead.
Boca is still looking for a manager. That's the short version. So there you go.
Yeah, man. Okay, I wondered about this. We had talked about this 2-3 years ago. It crossed our minds when we were talking about it on the daily that when he got done with Mexico, that kind of felt like, I wonder if Tata is going to be super choosy and just kind of hang out at home.
Yeah.
And pop into Newell's practices when he wants to. Going to be kind of like the dads in Varsity Blues, roll up with a lawn chair and sit outside of practice and just sit there and talk. Maybe go have a conversation with I was going to say whoever's coaching. It's Gabby. Gabby's coaching. Which would be, I don't think y'all realize how good of a fight that would be. We know Hodges is insane. Tata's got old man insanity on him. That man came through the fire and crucible of Marcelo Bielsa. Tata is not to be reckoned with.
Well, and speaking of Bielsa, right now Uruguay is looking at Bielsa and hiring him. Nico Cantor
Can't believe you didn't do that, Mexico.
Well, and Nico Cantor reminds us.
We want a Tata, but more so.
So Nico reminds us, Boca fired club legend Hugo Ibarra. And they have no manager for the Copa Libertadores match in a week.
Minor inconvenience.
You're in the Copa Libertadores. You fired your legendary manager, and you don't have one currently. So that's Boca Juniors. Welcome to the party. Yeah. So that one's going to be really interesting going forward there. So there's that with Tata Martino. I'm trying to see if there's any.
Rich, people are always going to want Tata back.
Yeah,
Tata should come hit the spike at some point. Four card. Tata's not taking the Boca Juniors job. We're laughing at that.
Yes.
That's what we're laughing at right now. I'm laughing at that. I don't know what John might be laughing at something else. I'm also laughing hysterically because Rush Probst is coaching at Pell City, and the man will not die.
Well,
he will not stop coaching.
Well, and
someone did ask the question: which family is he close to? Which family is this one close to? I feel like that's a relevant question here.
Yeah, Pell City is. I'm trying to think. Pell City is on the way to Birmingham, so it actually is a mid-ground. It is right in the middle because Pell City is when you go over Lake Martin, when you're driving to Birmingham, there's that body of water that you cross over with the bridge and the divided 4-lane. Then on the other side of that is Pell City. Pell City is like the largest major city that you get to before you get to the suburbs of Birmingham. But you cross over Lake Lewis Martin and you get to Pell City. That's where Pell City is. So you're probably talking, 35 minutes outside of Birmingham proper. And so he's there. He was living in a situation where he could keep an eye on his son, who was in his senior year at quarterback. And now that has happened, trying to figure out where things stand. But you read the fine print from the quote. It's like, it looks like Rush is going to Pell City because they're looking for a new head coach, and it could be finalized by Friday. That's what they also said when Rush was supposed to go to the small Christian academy. Is that, yeah, he's looking to be the head coach there or whatever. He's supposed to be associate head coach there. That was a half hour from where he was living. That fell through. So now it's Pell City, and we'll wait and see what happens there.
I would not want him to be the associate head coach where I'm coaching. I don't want that over my shoulder. I don't want to be coaching with the Grim Reaper sharpening a scythe over my shoulder.
Kind of like Robert Petrino Esquire and the Quitter in College Station.
Yeah, that's. Who else did they have on staff there?
Oh, let's find out.
Didn't they bring in? Oh God, who was the Maryland coach? Isn't he there too?
Oh, DJ Durkin.
Yeah, isn't Durkin there too?
Let me see.
Where's Durkin at Ole Miss?
Let's see. I'm looking at the coaching staff.
No, he's the DC at A&M.
Yeah. So
you have DJ Durkin and Bobby Petrino over at Texas A&M. You have a coup possibly coming in multiple directions.
Well, yeah, you have an individual who's basically got a $90 million contract, and you'd have to pay him in full. There's no buyout at a percentage when it comes to the Quitter. Then you have someone who probably should be spending time behind bars as your defensive coordinator. Remember what happened at the University of Maryland. And with workouts. And then you've got Robert Petrino Esquire, who was at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas for, I think, a week and a half before he took the gig in College Station. So, yes, you could multiple mirrors are going to be used in the vehicle that the Quitter is going to be coaching from this year. He's got to keep an eye over one shoulder to keep an eye on one coach and look over in his rearview mirror for the other coach. Objects in these mirrors are closer than they appear. So we're definitely keeping an eye on that. Note from Doug Robertson about training this morning for Atlanta United. All the players who went on international duty, all but two are at training today, Almada and Abram. Almada will train Friday. He's not hurt. So basically, Thiago Almada getting days off. If you scored a goal off a rebound from Lionel Messi where the ball is still, the shot is still vibrating off of the crossbar, then I would say, why, yes, sir. That is absolutely the cause. Yeah, 4-card with Tata Martino. Yeah, who wants that stress? It would have made the Mexico job look fun. That's not wrong.
Again, like, perfect situation would have been just like, hey, Mexico, go hire Bielsa. Because could you imagine a post game where like Bielsa just gets off the podium and starts squaring up with some former coach, like, Piojo shows up because, like, let's say Bielsa loses 2 games and Piojo shows up to start like trash talking him. He'll come off the podium and start swinging.
Yes.
Again, you don't want that fight.
No, you
promise you don't.
No, you don't want that.
I do wonder though if Tata is like, hey man, after that Mexico job, I'm just gonna chill out. Like, if it's the perfect situation, then fine.
I'm good.
Otherwise, I'm good.
Like,
we can talk.
Yeah.
But like, here's my show writer. And even if you meet it all, if the vibe ain't right, my feet are staying up on this coffee table.
Yep, I'm out.
I don't blame him. He's had a good career.
Yeah, I am OWT out. Kefsey brought up a point. We in hour number 1, we were talking about Franco Ibarra. And Kefsey had not seen the Ibarra national media conversation. Trust me, it's there, sidebar. But was asked to watch him in the Portland match and have seen things I hadn't seen before. He'd been great, but the group you put out have to cover spaces as a unit. If Ibarra chases, someone has to stay in the place he leaves. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. But when you look at the numbers for Franco Ibarra this season, it has been he has been a lockdown guy who really has grown into his role in the midfield. Not afraid to get dirty, not afraid to stick his feet in a tackle, not afraid to take the guy off his pins. He's going to stand you up. He's going to make you work for it. And it's been really interesting to see the evolution, Jared, of Franco Ibarra. But that national media conversation is there. What those individuals are looking at, I have no earthly idea. And they know who they are. I'm not going to mention who those individuals are.
I mean, I get if you want to look at it in the sense of he's not Diego Chara covering sideline to sideline. He is not. He's not Rennie Curran. Let's take it back to the Georgia fans. He's not Rennie Curran going sideline to sideline with the coverage, the lateral movement. Franco Ibarra is going to win most of the tackles that he's in on, though, and that's what they've needed of him in these situations. And maybe it's Santi Sosa in going forward, and you start alternating them. I don't personally love the idea of them playing together because the gist I've gotten out of everything that we've seen is that they'd rather run that single pivot with that one guy being at Sosa, and then have someone like Lissetto playing the metronome in front of him, along with Thiago Almada. But if you're going to alternate between them, so be it. And if your idea is, hey man, if once Santi's back up to speed, there's going to be games where we're going to want Santi out there versus games we're going to want Ibarra. I'm totally fine with that. My only beef with everything has been like, give the damn man his due. Mm-hmm. I know we had like this whole, and I know it was a thing last year where like he didn't meet the expectations last year. I know. Trust me. I was as annoyed by it as anybody because he had shown flashes in 21 that made me think he could be that. But he's done everything you've asked of him this year. Give the man his due. And if it means that he's shown you something that you're going to keep in your back pocket and run Sosa out there, then so be it. Cool. It's good to know you have that depth in that spot. Mm-hmm. And I'm fine with it if it's Sosa going forward. Depending on what you need, because we talked about it the first hour, and it was brought up by people that, you might want Sosa in there for this game because of his passing. Hopefully he's shaking out some of the cobwebs that he had from the Columbus game because he just wasn't good. And some of that might just be not being fresh, not being able to play. But, man, Sosa's been an interesting one because, he was amazing in 21, was it? He got here?
Yeah.
21. He was amazing in 21 when he got here. Struggled a bit with health by the end of the season. Last year had hernia surgery, missed a big chunk of the season. Was really good at the end of the season. A little bit banged up, and then gets the suspension for language. And then comes in this year and didn't play much in preseason. Didn't play much early in this season. He can be when he's up to speed, though. But I guess my thing with Ibarra is he's done everything he can, so you can't take him off the field.
Right.
And that's all you can ask a guy to do.
Yep. Numbers for
Rich, I'm struggling, bud.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's allergies or if I got a bug, man, but I'm mostly because I wanted to discuss USL, that I can still get work done.
Being the sicko that you are.
Look, like better than me screaming "Flower of Scotland" the other day running through the house, because Spain decided they wanted to rotate their squad and got that ass beat.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the numbers for Franco Ibarra. When it comes to tackles won, and this was the number that we're talking about now, our number one. Here's your numbers. And you mentioned Aiden Morris. Aiden Morris with 17 tackles won on 31 attempts. So that's what? 14 out of 32, 7. It's, 4. So you're looking at what? 55% in your tackles, 17 to 31. Franco Ibarra, second in Major League Soccer in tackles won with 15 on 24 attempts. So if you divide by 3, that's 5/8, 62.5% efficiency rating with winning tackles over the number of tackles attempted. 9 in the defensive third, 12 in the middle third, which once again creates those quick situations where Atlanta can take action in transition. 3 in the attacking third. So 21 of his 24 tackle attempts were in the middle third of the defensive third to create those opportunities to create transitions. Challenges, 54.5%, 12 of 22. 14 blocks this year. 14 blocks. and that is being in the path of the ball, and literally that's like number 1 in the league. Number 1 in the league in blocks, number 2 in the league in tackles won. And this is someone who has evolved and has grown with the experience that's there. 14 passes blocked, which looks fairly confident to be number 1 in the league. So, 14 blocks, number 1 in the league.
You can, if he is getting better at reading the game, he can help make up for it. Not dissimilar from what Michael Parker's was. Michael Parker's read the game like a book.
Mm-hmm.
If you can read the game efficiently, you can mitigate some of those speed deficiencies to get a head start on being in the right place at the right time. Especially helps when you're an older player.
Yeah. And
Brandon Bottom's like 21, 22 years old. So
yeah, 21.
You can't even go to Hertz and rent a car right now.
No, he is a month away from his 22nd birthday. But yeah, number 1 in the league in blocks, number 1 in the league in passes blocked, and safe to say probably number 2 in the league in number of players tackled plus number of interceptions combined. So that's what you're looking at from Franco Ibarra this season for Atlanta United. Someone who has really grown into that role. But tackles won, Aiden Morris, 17. Franco Ibarra, 15. Jean Mota for Beckham FC at 13. And then you have everybody else going there. John Nelson, no related, is 5th in tackles won with 11 for his time.
I love that there's a John Nelson and a John Freeman in this league.
Yes. Both as an official and as a
player. We've covered everything. It's beautiful.
Yep. So everybody's in practice other than Abram and Almada. So you're looking at, if you were to extrapolate players available, you're probably looking at what Etienne, like I said, and this is interpreting what's going on today. And when, if Jason hops on tomorrow during the weekend whip around, patent pending, trademark coming, hopefully sooner rather than later, we can kind of get into it, but you're probably looking at Etienne up top with Giacomakis. And once again, if these guys can give you 45 out of the blocks, they're starting. If they can get you 55, get you into the second half, they're starting. Thiago getting rest today and then practicing on Friday just to get the cobwebs out, So you're looking probably as close to first choice availability against Red Bulls, who are going to drive you crazy, as much as humanly possible. So it will be interesting to see what it looks like. But it looks like you will have at least first choice close to being available in some form for this match against Red Bulls, which once again will probably end up driving you crazy. So that's where we are. That's where we are with practice today. We'll know more in a bit. A couple of other news and notesy things before we go. And there's some stuff going on north of the border. Former Canada Soccer President Nick Bontis and Victor Montagliani testifying to the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage today. Montagliani is now FIFA Vice President, CONCACAF President. Sean Heffernan, the CFO of Canada Soccer, will also be testifying. And the other element in that is that Christine Sinclair was a guest on Julie Foudy's Laughter Permitted podcast on ESPN and ESPNW. And she addressed how the Canada women's national team has gotten to the situation where they are and where things stand at present. So here's when Julie asked about the background and what the next, say, week and a half to 2 weeks hold. Here's what Sinclair told Julie Foudy. Provided I could, I don't know, perhaps jack up the volume and actually do it properly. So, let's try this again with the volume where it's supposed to be, so you can actually hear what Christine Sinclair tells Julie Foudy about where things stand.
We didn't participate in the She Believes. So we went back to work under protest, and we are right now. So what happens in Canada is you need to give it's like 18 days. So of notice to be in a legal strike position. But we knew in the She Believes, you're not going to have a bigger platform than that tournament before the World Cup. So we're now in a legal position to strike. We have a FIFA window coming up in 10 days.
Who are you supposed to play again?
We are going to France.
Oh, you're going to France. Okay.
Yes.
Which is a great game, which you guys would want to play.
And I mean, it's the second to last FIFA window before the World Cup.
Yeah.
But at this point, unfortunately, the CSA has not not even met. They haven't even addressed things with us. It's just been like crickets. I think it's important for people to know that our demands, I'm going to call them, it goes so much deeper than equal pay. Equal pay for our federation is actually easy. They signed on that very early on. So that those aren't the issues at play right now. It's funding for our programs, youth programming, staffing, equal, like, we have equal pay, but by the way, you're not having the last 2 camps of the year. So it's equal pay, but not equal opportunity to make that money. Those unfortunately have not been addressed, and we'll see what happens in the next 10 days.
Next 10 days. So once again, thanks to our friends at ESPN and Julie Foudy's Laughter Permitted podcast. Sadly, it appears that things are not close to being resolved when it comes to the women's national team. Bontis and Montagliani are set, and Heffernan are set to testify at 3:30 on Parliament Hill this afternoon. I don't know if it's in person or virtually, but it should be very, very interesting, Jarrett, to see what happens at 3:30 this afternoon with how things are set right now with the Canada women's national team as they get ready for a World Cup in short order.
Yeah, as annoying as things might be sometimes for the U.S. national team, men's and women's, Canada seems to be doing it extra. It's a lot. That's a lot from the men's and women's side. We know the women have been on this train for a while. The men have been on theirs as well, and the men are just different right now, man. Like, the degree to which the men's national team has embraced this whole entire heel persona is very interesting.
We're the big dog now.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
We're the big dog now. Let's see. Napoli and Milan are preparing for their first of 3 meetings in 17 days. So that's going on in Serie A. Thomas Tuchel return for Bayern just in time for Bayern and Dortmund. So there's that going on. Manchester United, and this was interesting. And once again, it comes to how you manipulate your books. Manchester United reported a net profit of £6.3 million, $7.75 million in their second quarterly fiscal results today. Subject to takeover bids, released their key financial figures for 3 months ending in the calendar year. Total revenue down 9.8% year to year. Club's commercial revenues were up 22% year to year. Reported decreases in broadcasting and match day revenues. Broadcasting decrease of about a third. Match day revenues down about 14%. United said broadcasting revenues down primarily due to the men's first team participating in Europa League compared to Champions League. Match day revenue down to playing 2 less home matches than in the previous period. United's non-current borrowings of $650 million remained unchanged year on year, but the difference in the exchange rate had an impact on the debt when converting to pounds sterling. Exchange rate went from 1.35 to 1.20. So the debt rose from 4.77 million pounds to 5.35. So Manchester United, with all the debt service they have going on through the beauty of bookkeeping, reported a $7.7 million profit in the last period.
Look, if you're good as a bookkeeper, you can make some numbers do some magical things. You can also make some numbers do some very illegal things.
Yes, it's such an.
And sometimes that line gets a little, it's a little opaque.
Yes. Newcastle's Saudi ownership's now under fresh scrutiny following the LIV golf claims. I have not watched one LIV tournament and have no intention of doing so. And apparently, America's Funniest Home Videos is drawing better ratings than they are.
Well, okay, first of all, who's hosting America's Funniest Home Videos these days? Because the only one I acknowledge is Bob Saget.
Reruns. It's the reruns with Bergeron.
Well, the only ones I acknowledge are Bob Saget from the early 90s. Back when, imagine me. Imagine being me.
Yeah.
7 years old, 8 years old, watching America's Funniest Home Videos with Bob Saget hosting. And, that's just the wholesome dad from TV. And not understanding what Bob Saget's stand-up was because you're 7 or 8 years old. And then you grow up into a teenager and you hear his stand-up and you're like, oh, that sound you heard is my childhood shattering.
Yes.
Absolutely and completely. Absolutely obliterated.
Yes.
Only could have been funnier if you'd have gotten Gilbert Gottfried, God rest both their souls,
yes.
to host America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yes. So right now, the Newcastle takeover is under fresh scrutiny after the Premier League admitted for the first time it's completely aware of court disclosures involving LIV and the PIF. Documents submitted on behalf of the PIF say it should be regarded as a foreign state within the meaning of the U.S. Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. Also said the PIF and Newcastle chairman Yasser Al-Rumayyan are a sovereign instrumentality of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and a sitting minister of the Saudi government. Premier League had allowed the takeover by the PIF, who are 80% stakeholders in Newcastle, after receiving what the Premier League called legally binding assurances that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will not control Newcastle, end quote. Court filing has led to renewed calls for an investigation, and an MP on the committee asked if the Premier League would now revisit the Newcastle United Football Club arrangements. So there's that. PIF and Newcastle obviously declined to comment when contacted by the Telegraph. So that might get looked at in short order. And the Spurs are urgently seeking further clarification from FIFA after the club's managing director of football, Fabio Paratici, had his ban in Italy extended worldwide. Paratici is going to have to step away from his job. I guess that means he can't even sit down at the table and attend meetings now. After it extended the ban imposed on him when Juve were found guilty of false accounting, Spurs responding with a statement saying, quote, "This committee deliberation has been taken with no advance notice to any of the parties involved. We are urgently seeking further clarification from FIFA as to the details of the extension and its variance from the Italian FA sanction." Remember that Juve were docked points. Paratici's 30-month ban initially applied to only Italian football, but FIFA said in a statement they can confirm that the chairperson of the FIFA Disciplinary Committee has decided to extend the sanctions imposed by the FIGC to have worldwide effect. Worldwide effect. So your managing director can't do any managing or directing until further notice because he's been banned from doing things worldwide. I don't think that's good, Jared. That doesn't sound like a good thing.
No, that sounds like a mistake.
Yes. Alexander Mitrovic has apologized for shoving the referee in the FA Cup when Fulham went off the rails. Shown a red card after making contact with Chris Kavanagh, shouting in his face after awarding a penalty, and dismissed Willian for a handball. It was a handball. Basically, Willian punched the ball out of the 6. So Willian got a red. Mitrovic went nuts, pushed the official. And his manager, Marco Silva, has been charged with multiple misdemeanors, including improper conduct, improper behavior, and abusing match officials. Mitrovic has apologized, was trying to get the referee's attention, but okay, here's his quote. "I regret my actions that led to me being sent off. I allowed my frustration to get the better of me, and how I reacted was wrong. I was trying to get the referee's attention, but I appreciate that I should not have put my hands on him, and I understand why he showed me a red card. My first in-game sending off for Fulham, and my first since the 2015-2016 season. Football Association has said the standard punishment for a straight red, a 3-game ban, would be clearly insufficient. Folks are looking for like a 10-match ban for Mitrovic, but Mitrovic has come out and publicly apologized for shoving the official. It will be interesting to see what happens there. Will he get more matches, or is it just going to be stuck at 3? Erling Haaland apparently was not at practice today, this morning, ahead of the clash with Liverpool. Mason Mount is interested in reuniting with Thomas Tuchel at Bayern Munich. Let's get into what you can watch today before we go, because a reminder tonight, it is Soccer Down Here Games of the Week. Boys and girls, McIntosh hosting Stars Mill, 5:30, 7:30. I'll be doing the girls match. Jason will be doing the boys match. Very, very special night. Salute to the troops down at McIntosh. They're going to have a flyover. There's going to be a flyover at McIntosh tonight for the match. Very, very special things going on there. Thursday, pretty light stuff. Mexican, you got Liga MX Femenil at 11 o'clock, Guadalajara Atlético San Luis. The Zone has Women's Champions League, Wolfsburg PSG at 12:45, Chelsea Lyon at 3. Paramount Plus has the Argentina Primera, Defensa y Justicia Vélez Sarsfield at 7, Argentinos Juniors and Godoy Cruz at 8:30, and Sudamericano U17s on Fox Soccer Plus, Colombia, Uruguay at 5:30, Ecuador, Brazil at 8. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo before we go. And, who's going where, who's doing what, we'll see. Once again, we always avoid the 3- and 4-letter papers, or we warn you if the information is coming from them. Declan Rice, Arsenal's top target in the summer, growing confidence they can beat out Chelsea, Man City, Manchester United. Real Madrid have made Borussia Dortmund's Jude Bellingham their priority signing. However, they're also interested in Reece James. Manchester United monitoring Eintracht Frankfurt's Randall Colomouani and Atalanta's Rasmus Højlund, in case they're priced out of a move for Harry Kane. United could miss out on signing Sabitzer permanently after his loan deal, as new Bayern Munich manager Thomas Tuchel may decide to keep him. That's from the 3-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Julian Nagelsmann and Mauricio Pochettino open to succeeding Conte at Spurs. However, both managers wait to see if the Real Madrid job becomes available first. Luis Enrique said he would like to manage in the Premier League with a team that's able to do important things, in quotes. That's from our friends at Cadena Ser. Ilkay Gundogan, ready to leave Manchester United, joined Barca on a free. Barca will press ahead with the deal after reaching a verbal agreement to sign Athletic Bilbao's Inigo Martinez. Newcastle want to sign Andreas Christensen from Barca. Eddie Howe is pushing the club to sign Scott McTominay for Manchester United. Barcelona facing competition from Arsenal and Chelsea for Atletico Paranaense's Vitor Roque. Man City, PSG have made opening bids for Hajduk Split's 16-year-old Croat defender Luka Vuskovic. David De Gea has turned down Manchester United's first offer of a new contract. Marcus Rashford has dismissed reports he wants a new deal worth £500,000 a week to state Manchester United is complete nonsense. United are planning to step up their contract talks with him before the end of the year. Kavisha Kvaratskhelia is set to sign a new 5-year deal to stay at Napoli. Brighton want to sign Reo Hatate from Celtic. Jarrett. Siegel set to offer Evan Ferguson a new contract amid interest from other Premier League clubs. The father of Ansu Fati wants his son to leave Barcelona due to a lack of minutes this year. Manchester City are about to invest £300 million in redeveloping the Etihad, including increasing capacity to about 61,000. That comes from our friends at the 4-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. And yes, we did mention that Marcelo Bielsa close to taking over at Uruguay. So we'll keep an eye on that. Will El Loco go and be a part of Uruguay? We'll keep an eye on that. So that is your day. And once again, thanks for the guys from the USL Show, Kaylor Hodges and John Morrissey, at Kaylor Hodges, at USL Tactics, at the USL Show, for hanging out with us and giving you the lowdown after the first month or so of the USL Championship. We'll keep an eye on what's going on there. We will have them back, and they will let you know what's going on a monthly basis with USL Championship, League One, and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for hanging out with us today and doing that. Thursdays with Nico is coming up at 1 o'clock on the network. So we'll get Nico's views on what's going on from a West Coast perspective. Once again, Stars Mill and McIntosh, 5:30, 7:30 tonight from Peachtree City and Chief Stadium down on the campus of McIntosh High School. And tomorrow, it is the standard free-for-all, where at 9 o'clock we get you ready for the weekend. 9:30, it's our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. Should be Michael Parkhurst, unless he's traveling and being a mogul. 10 o'clock is the weekend whip around patent pending trademark coming hopefully sooner rather than later, where we take you through the league and hopefully get a visit from Jason to talk about Atlanta and Red Bulls, where I know a lot of you will be frustrated because Red Bulls will do that to everyone that they face. And also remember the twos, get Red Bulls 2 this weekend. So it's Red Bulls Atlanta United Saturday night, Sunday night. It is Atlanta United 2, Red Bulls 2. And we'll keep you posted on that at MLS Next Pro. And that's a show. So for everybody here at SDH, as Jarrett's phone was about to die. That's why he left us. So for everybody here at SDH, for Jason, for Jarrett, for Nick, I'm just John. Played safe, everybody. Enjoy your day. Be safe, please, in going through. And we will catch up with you tomorrow. Thanks to the guys once again from the USL Show for hanging out with us and breaking down USL Championship and League One. So we'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 9:05. Played safe, everybody. Mucho platial. Since it's the end of the show, it means I get to do this. We'll see you in a couple hours with Thursdays with Nico.